When it comes to living life, there's a lot to overthink, but I don't ever have to overthink my water. I've been drinking Smart Water for years and truly love its pure, crisp taste. It's vapor distilled through a process inspired by clouds. I love chic branding, and Smart Water's sleek bottle shape makes it the perfect accessory for any day bag, workout tote, or backpack. Smart Water is the smart way to hydrate no matter what you have going on in your life. Life is full of choices. Smart Water is a simple one. Visit drinksmartwater.com to learn more.
Hear that? Yeah, that's the sound of you relaxing, because now you're managing diabetes with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. You get to know your glucose levels and where it's headed. Manage your diabetes with more confidence with the Freestyle Libre 3 system. Ready to learn more about the #1 prescribed CGM in the U.S.? Visit freestylelibre.us to learn more. Based on retail sales data for patients' last filled prescription by manufacturer. Refer to the FLAIR NL4 study published in BMJ Open Diabetes Research and Care 2019. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us. Kroger brand products have the great taste you'll celebrate. That's why over 40 million people choose Kroger brand products, making them a true crowd pleaser. And with quality guaranteed, you'll love your choice or get your money back. Score Kroger brand products with savings you can cheer for and great taste you can't resist. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Welcome back to Currently with Curator, where I share my latest style obsessions, all of which you can access through my shopping community, Curator. Black Friday sales have officially begun, and we've got the most fabulous one to help you with all of your holiday gift shopping. Choose from my Black Friday collection, which includes some of my most coveted products, like Cozy Skin Worldwide Slippers, PMD skincare tools, and Fakai hair care, a favorite, plus a few curated sets for even bigger savings. Just head to Curator.com, that's CURATEUR.com, to shop the collection and take 20% off by using BF20 by December 30th. Happy shopping. Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel Zoe, and you're listening to Climbing in Heels. This show is all about celebrating the most extraordinary superwomen who will be sharing their incredible journeys to the top, all while staying glamorous. Today with me, we have a renowned digital influencer and entrepreneur, one of my favorite people in the world, a very dear friend, the one and only Chriselle Lim. Chriselle is considered one of the pioneers in digital fashion content, and trust me, very understandably so. I am so excited for you all to hear about her story. It's really good, so let's get started.
Hey, I'm so happy to see you.
I am more happy to see you. I feel like there's so much we have to talk about. I think, part of the reason I started Climbing in Heels is because I have so many incredible women in my life, and everyone's story and journey to get there is so totally different and very complex. I think I want to start at the beginning because I always like to know, because having young children just like you, I think we look at our children and you'd go, what are they like? What happens later? Who are these people later, right? And what I have found, and I remember when my children were born, we had this incredible nurse who obviously helped us so that I could keep the baby alive for the first, few months, because I didn't know how to do it. And she said to me, they are exactly who they are right now as you're staring at them, right? And she was so right. And so I want to know, what kind of kid were you?
Well, as a kid, I was uncomfortably shy. Like, it was a mixture of just being not confident in my teenage years, but also being one of the only Asian kids in a predominantly all Caucasian school. Just had me feeling very different. So I always just kind of stayed quiet, but I've always had an ambition inside of me that no one really knew about. But it was very internal. Like, I internalized everything. So I think it's safe to say at a young age, I was very ambitious, but no one really knew that. That was kind of my secret weapon, I always say. Because when I was in high school, I literally didn't talk. Like if someone asked me a question, it would be like a 1-word answer. And it was to the point where people thought there was something wrong with me because I just didn't talk. Wow. And it was mainly because I just was not confident in myself, but I also felt like I didn't have a place to say anything, or my opinions weren't important enough. And it was really in college when I started developing kind of like my own character and confidence to be able to speak up. So everyone that knows me from high school, when they see me now, they're like,
what?
Like, is this the same person?
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So you basically had so much. Now, were you that way at home, or at home you were like probably couldn't stop talking? Did you have to like get it out?
So I got it out in other ways.
Right.
I was always very creative, and I actually always loved being online because that was when AIM, dial-up internet, was just starting off for me. That's when I was in high school. So unfortunately, with my parents, I wasn't very talkative either. I just kind of closed myself, like locked myself in the room. I was this weird kid that was on the internet, dialing up into AIM. For those of you that are listening that don't know what AIM is, it's pretty much like, I don't know, what Instagram was back in like 30 years ago, right? Or 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so
it was AOL Instant Messenger, right?
Yeah. AOL Instant Messenger.
Yep. I remember.
And so I always had a connection with the digital world because I found it fascinating. So I was a little geeky in that sense, but even my parents, they really had to kind of like pull it out of me to talk, to like be able to say, oh, how was your day? Like, what did you do? Da, da, da. But also I come from a very traditional Korean family. Yeah, my parents changed a lot, and I'm so, so proud of them, especially as I went through my divorce, which we'll get into later. Yeah. They really had to have a mental shift. They really changed as who they are, because traditionally growing up, they were so strict with me. So I didn't really feel like I had a place to open up and to say these things.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting, because I think as parents, and my guess is you're probably the polar opposite as a parent. Yeah.
I mean, every time it's like, okay, let's talk about our feelings today. Chloe's like, Mom.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because we try and take from our parents, like, okay, what were the best things? Let's do that, right? Like, let's find that in ourselves, or we already have that, so let's hold on to that. But this drove me insane, and this didn't work for me growing up. So I try and do the opposite, I do the same. But I think, so when did you like come out, so to speak? When did you like come out of your shell? Was it college?
It was definitely college. Well, I went to Cal Poly for 2 years, studying accounting, realizing that I'm horrible at numbers.
Horrible.
And then so at Cal Poly, there's a very small agricultural department, which textiles fell into. And so textiles was considered fashion at Cal Poly. So they called it their small fashion program. So I signed up for it. And then after I discovered that I was really interested in it, that's when I transitioned over to FITM. But yeah, it was really in college where I kind of went wild, because that's what happens with all strict kids when they're let loose. They're just like, what is this freedom?
It's like bird let out of a cage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was during college. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes. I went through my ups and downs, but that's where I really discovered, who I was as a person, my character, my personality. I personally didn't even know who I was. So I think that was definitely the start of it for me, was in college, and realizing that I could actually turn fashion into something. And actually, I was in college while watching your show, Rachel. And to me, that really just allowed me to picture myself to do something in fashion. And so you really, I mean, you probably get this all the time. And it's weird saying this because we're friends now, but you paved the way for so many young girls at the time, because at the time there was no social media, there was no Instagram, there was no Twitter, nothing. And so it was like an industry that was completely closed unless you're already in it. And then your show came out. And I think that allowed me to dream a little bit.
That show will always mean a lot to me, because at the time it was so hard, right? And I had so many jobs, and production was not then what it is now. People know how to do it and quickly and efficiently. And then it really ate up most of my life while I was doing a million things in my actual work life. But looking back, the fact that it impacted people in these ways just makes me honestly feel, I get very emotional about it because I think about that there wasn't the social media and there wasn't the access, and that it did provide that sort of like hope for young people, because my intent with the show was to really open that wall and lift the curtain of the fashion world, because there's so much genius behind it. And I couldn't bear the fact that nobody could see how things happen, and they couldn't see the designer talent. They couldn't see the hair, makeup, and the teams that were creating the images, the fashion shows, the this, the that, the like. And so I think the fact that it helped young people sort of open their eyes to what was possible, that to me means there was a purpose for me.
I mean, you have no idea. And it's obviously very hard. And I feel like I have to check myself sometimes too, because I'm kind of in that position now too, where people are like, oh my God, thank you for your content. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, it's just what I do. So same thing with you, I'm sure. It's like when you're filming it and when you're actually like, you know,
it's your work.
It's just work. And you're just like, this is what I'm doing. But the level and amount of impact that you left on girls and boys out there that were just dying to figure out how to get into fashion. I feel like it's my generation, like the group of my generation that are in fashion now. I feel like they were all influenced and impacted by your show. And it's incredible to really see how one show can make a difference in a generation.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. I have such chills. I get emotional about it, but you represent, I think, so much for so many people. And I think that over the last few years, you've become much more open on your platforms, right? As to, I think, what goes on in your personal life. Because I think before it was more of, here's Chriselle, she's this magnificent beauty. Okay, she has young kids. She has this perfect life. She has like, you know, but I don't think people understand what goes into that life. And I think there's some of these young people that are like, oh, I want to be like Chriselle, or I want to be this, or I want to be that. And it was like when people used to say to me and still say to me like, oh, I want to be a stylist. I love clothes. It's like, okay, but are you willing to devote 24/7 to that love? Because it's not pretty. It's not easy. It's not, you know, and they'll look at these pictures of you like at the Maurice or like running around Paris. And of course it is glamorous in the sense of like pinching yourself and saying, I can't believe this is my job, right? But how many people go with you on these trips?
Yeah. Yeah.
And exactly. How many, and like, how long are you getting ready and doing this content? And like, I want to demystify a little bit because I think you're such a good example of how hard somebody works to be where they are. And I think not just becoming where you are, but staying where you are. Because I think like any business, and listen, you're still very young, but I think there's always new talent. There's always new ideas. There's always new platforms. There's like all of a sudden you've built this huge following on something and then they launch another thing. Wait, this is the thing people want. And like, you know, I was saying to my husband, because I was watching you while I was on a work trip to New York. And I think I texted you because I was like, girl, you must be tired because, you know, you are a single mom now, right? And you talk about that, but you've launched a lot of different things in your job, in your career now, like Fleur and Booma.
Yep.
And, you know, and I want to talk about that. First off, college, and then you said, okay, done with school.
Yeah. First of all, I was horrible at school. I've always believed that I was meant to work, and I always knew that in my head, right?
Me too.
And yeah, so during college, I barely got by. Like I graduated, but like with the lowest GPA ever. But I was able to.
By the way, you're like the 10th woman that I've interviewed that said this. So I just want, I go back to my theory of our education does not define us.
No. I mean, I think I'm not downplaying that it's not important. It's important, but it doesn't define us, like you mentioned. And so, yeah, I mean, I was always working. I always had internships. I always had my hand in something because I wanted to figure out what it was that I wanted to do in fashion. Because as you know, there's lots of different, you know, just like things you could do in fashion.
Things, yeah.
So I I literally went out there and interned for anybody, everybody. And I discovered what I really liked. And so that was at the cusp of when digital media was starting. So then I started my blog and YouTube channel at the end of my college years, and I was out there working and hustling. And I just started posting kind of outfit photos on my blog. And then that kind of got interest in a lot of people, young people, college kids mainly.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
which is really who you want, honestly.
Yeah. And they were my peers, right? They were like my age at the time. And so that was about, I don't know, like 15, 16 years ago. And so what's been really exciting and interesting whenever I do like PAs and like meetups, a lot of these women that come to me, they're grown women, they have kids, they have families, they have careers now, unless they found me on TikTok, they're like 13 years old. But most of my followers, like the mass majority of my followers, kind of went through that life cycle with me. So they graduated college, and then they went to go look for a job, and then they got married, and then they had kids. And then, now a lot more women are like, I'm going through a divorce too, or I've gone through a divorce. So I feel like very big trend, post-pandemic.
Yeah. You either had babies or got divorced. That's what happened.
One or the other.
I seriously love that noise. It's the absolute best kind of notification. That's another sale on Shopify, the platform trusted by millions of entrepreneurs to create their online store and so much more. Shopify makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere, whether you're selling fashion and beauty products, holiday decor, or customized gifts. Start selling with Shopify and join the platform that's simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. With Shopify, you'll customize your online store to your brand, discover new customers, and build the relationships that will keep them coming back. Shopify covers all the sales channels to successfully grow your business, from an in-person POS system to an all-in-one e-commerce platform, even across social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And thanks to 24/7 support and free on-demand business courses, Shopify is here to help you succeed every step of the way. It's how every minute new sellers around the world make their first sale with Shopify, and now you can too. I know firsthand how much work and honestly trial and error goes into creating and growing a business. Very well. Some of you might remember that Curator started as a business called Box of Style. With Box of Style, we offered our quarterly subscription box with a very limited add-on marketplace. We knew our customers wanted and needed more from us, and they genuinely wanted access to more products to shop from. We migrated our site to Shopify in 2019 and rebranded Box of Style to Curator in 2020, and I cannot even begin to tell you what a game changer it's been. We are now able to offer our customers a full online shopping community that continues to grow and expand into so many categories. When you're ready to take your idea to the world, do it with Shopify, the commerce platform powering millions of businesses down the street and around the globe. Now it's your turn to try Shopify for free and start selling anywhere. Sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/Zoe, all lowercase, ZOE. Go to shopify.com/Zoe to start selling online today. Shopify.com/Zoe, ZOE, all lowercase.
Yeah, I never really thought in the beginning, the early days, it was going to be anything. It was just me being able to communicate with a few online friends at the time, what I was wearing, because they were into fashion too. So we would share all these ideas. And then it kind of grew into something because it was in the cusp of when Instagram was just starting. And once Instagram launched, it just all kind of really took over. So yeah, it was wild. It was an industry. It was a wild, wild west where no one really understood it, how we were able to in fact, people actually hated us, right? Yeah. People actually really disliked digital influencers, which I understand, especially coming from like a more traditional editorial background. It doesn't really make sense because we are technically reporting on fashion, which is technically what the professionals were supposed to do, right?
Sure.
And so I think for the first, I would say 5 to 7 years, we were just like fighting for our spot, and not even fighting, just like really being consistent and creating a voice for ourselves. And there were a few industry veterans like yourself and Eva Chen that were super lovely and supportive. And they were always just, there to root us on. And obviously there were others that weren't and still aren't sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is what it is.
I think they didn't know what to do with it. I think it was sort of like, who do these people think they are, just showing up, taking pictures and like reporting on fashion?
Yeah.
And
we were all kids. We were all kids.
Right. And listen, I think like anything else, there are those people, the bad examples that ruin it for everybody sometimes in any industry. You know what I mean? In any industry. And I think that it's like survival, right? And the best survive, right?
Yeah.
And it's the people with more than just the picture. It's the people with substance, with depth, with ambition, who really are, because I always say the hard work wins, you know? And you can tell people that are in it for the flash and people that are in it because it's really their job and they work really freaking hard at it. And I think ultimately, those are the people that are here to stay and showing over and over, what you're capable of, right? And I think it's like anything else. And so I think you've really built quite a business, and I think I want to address that because you became this mom of these beautiful girls. And, it's weird. I feel like it happened pretty quickly, but maybe it's because pre-pandemic, I just feel like I'm like in a bit of a blur, right?
Right.
But they're how old now, the girls?
7 and 4.
Okay. What I really want to talk to you about a little bit is I had my kids later, right? Because I did my career first. And I think the thing I've always wondered is, okay, if I had my kids young, how on earth would I have built my career? Because doing it simultaneously, to me, is the biggest challenge you can ever face, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, I think what I want to know, and I think our listeners would love to hear, is like, how do you deal with that? Like, how is that process for you?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, and I'm not advising anyone to get a divorce, but I'm saying that co-parenting has actually allowed me to not feel as guilty because the fact is, and it doesn't work out perfectly because, during Fashion Month, like I can't choose which week I'm going to be gone. Like the Fashion Week calendar is what it is, but knowing that every other week or every 2 weeks, because we do 50-50 custody, the girls wouldn't see me otherwise if I was at home. So all of a sudden when I'm traveling, it's almost like this guilt that I used to have, because before when I would travel, I would be like, oh, the girls are waiting for me at home, or, my partner's waiting for me at home. Like I feel so bad traveling again. But now it's almost like, well, they wouldn't be with me anyways if I was at home anyways, right?
That's so interesting. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
So in a sense, it's actually made my life and my travels a little easier.
Sure.
It gives you a little bit more space and room. And obviously, this because Rachel, you're one of the first people that I came to when I was going through my divorce. I was like, what do I do?
And look at you. And look at you.
I mean, you always gave me the best advice, and you've always been so welcoming and,
Because I wasn't worried about you. And I had to tell you that while you were at like the bottom, because I think that's the thing. You get to that place and you're at the bottom. And I think sometimes you need that unbiased person who has lived some life to be like, lady, you are so good. You don't know it yet because this year is going to suck. But I promise you on the other side is total happiness.
So true. So true. And obviously because obviously you're happily married, but like you have a lot of friends that have gone through that. Like
more than not.
Yeah, more than not, And so I really valued that, like just hearing it from you. And so Yeah, when I kind of look back on where I was at before to where I am now, I just feel so much more free, and not saying that I don't feel guilty. I still feel incredibly guilty, especially during Fashion Month when I'm gone essentially for 3 to 4 weeks. When I talk to my girls about it, like I just had a chat with Chloe this morning and I was like, Chloe, so please be honest with me. Like, do you feel like mommy is gone too much? Do you miss me? And she's like, I miss you, but this is what I'm used to. And I don't, I miss you and I wish you were here, but I'm not sad. And I was like,
Oh,
you're not
bless.
sad? Excuse me. No, no. It was actually the best answer.
No, it's the best. That's
best.
what you want. That's the dream.
Yeah. And so it kind of lifted this like weight on my shoulder because I've been gone for about a month. And, her dad and I, we try to balance it out when he has them for a month and I'll have them for a month if I'm around for a month, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just shows you that kids, especially young kids, and I can't really speak to parents that are going through a divorce when the kids are older, but when they're a little younger, like my girls, they're very adaptable and they just remember, and they're such present little creatures. Like they don't really think outside of like what's right in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's
so for them to be like, oh, I wonder how my life is going to look like. They don't really think that way. It's more of like, oh, am I happy now? Am I having fun now? And so I think both their dad and I would do a very good job of making sure like they stay present and they're happy with where they're at. And so, yeah, I mean, I do feel guilty, but I realize that it's all internal. My kids are fine. It's just me that has to internalize that, right?
It's us. It's us more than them a lot of the time, I think.
Absolutely.
But that's such a great point. And I would say on the back end of that, a lot of the women that I speak to were raised by single mothers, single working mothers, and they are so driven. And what they say over and over is, watching my mom, I learned my ambition, my work ethic, that life isn't just handed to you. I'm so grateful for her sacrifice. So I do think that whether it's obvious or not, I'm certain that they probably watch you and they just probably admire you and how hard you work. And I mean, girls are very intuitive. I imagine that they know like, mommy has to do this and we're proud of her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And, so many times I'm like, what can I talk to them about? What can I teach them? But I realize that it's not really about me teaching them. It's just them watching and observing what you're doing. And they're just going to learn from that in itself. And so I actually like it when I'm working from home. Like today I'm working from home and the girls are, I don't know why they have the day off today because it's like a fall free day. I don't know. Anyways, my dad is taking care of them downstairs. Also benefit of living with parents. So I like to have the girls watch me when I work, especially because my work is so much focused on the phone and social media and digital media and taking selfies and taking photos. But I want them to associate social media and the phone and digital media as work versus like always being like consuming content, right?
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because my oldest one doesn't really care, but my youngest one, she likes to create. She's like a very creative person. So, I like her to get into that mindset of, okay, like, how do I take this product and like, how do I make a cool, like interesting concept around it? I think for me, that's really important because this is what I do. I rather have them learn the creatives around it versus just like consuming content all day.
So going back, I think to a point you said earlier that there have been haters and people like constantly putting down the industry and influencers in general. How do you deal with haters? And then also, have you ever had a day or a moment in time where you were like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm so over this. I'm not doing this anymore. Career change, or I'm at a standstill. I need to make a huge change and want to just do something else or want to quit. Some people have had those moments and some people really haven't had those moments. I mean, I've had those moments 100%.
Yeah, I'm sure you definitely have experienced that on a bigger level because you're on kind of mass television. So I'm sure you had your own set of situations that you have to deal with. But for me, just within the industry alone, it's been pretty pleasant now, just because like I think we're pretty well accepted now. They realize that we're here to stay
and needed.
It's an ecosystem. I was just speaking on like a little panel in Canada.
Oh yeah, after Europe for like multiple weeks. I see her in Canada. I'm like, girl, come home. Where are you? You must be so tired. What are you doing?
I remember I got that message. I was laughing. But we were talking because I was with a big retailer there, and we were just talking about how this whole ecosystem is very circular. And we had a few audience questions. And when the girl was like, do you think people like us, like just everyday people, have a say in like trends? And I was like, absolutely. Now we do, because before it used to be always like the top down, like what are these big houses doing? Mm-hmm. But now, because of social media, digital media, brands also are looking at what the young people are actually wearing and how they're styling it. And that also influences them for the next collection or their next ad campaign. And so it's the circular kind of ecosystem that we're all helping each other out, whether a brand launches a product, whether it's an influencer talking about it, whether you're a consumer and you just want, and to be honest, Fleur, my brand, but incredibly viral because of everyday people posting on TikTok. It wasn't one big celebrity. It wasn't one big, influencer. It was a lot of people just talking about it. And so
I also want to say I'm wearing the Woods.
I'm wearing somebody would.
Yes, I love that one.
That is our latest launch.
It's so good. It's so good. I put it on right away. The packaging's so pretty. And it's on my vanity, and I sprayed it right away. And my kids like loved it. Mommy, you smell so good.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
send
your kids the travel size.
I love it.
Oh,
I have it on right now.
Thank you. That means so much to me.
I left my house this morning in like the dark to take Sky to take him to get like his passport this morning, and I literally was like, I like sprayed it on me. I'm like, yep, still smell it. So
okay, good. The lasting power works.
It does.
But yeah, it actually does really well. So yeah, I mean, I think industry people realize that we're all needed. We all have a place and a purpose of why we do what we do. But I think the hate that I actually received most recently was once I went through my divorce, not to me personally, but it was interesting because I decided during that period not to really post my kids anymore, just because they were going through a transition. I was going through a transition. I wasn't feeling motivated to post anything personal. So for about a year and a half, I just stopped posting my kids, but their dad decided to continue to post the kids, which is totally fine. That's his thing. And so the amount of comments that I got from people being like, their dad loves them more, you don't love them. And, you're a horrible person because you left your family. And so that was the extent of hate that I recently got. But for the most part, if you just don't address it, they just go away, obviously, like most people do.
Yep.
And obviously my community really stood up for me during that time. But it's interesting because people love to, and as you know, they love to jump to conclusions. They love to make assumptions. Judgment.
Try and bring people down. Yes.
And that's why I just decided, I'm slowly starting to post a little bit more of my kids again. But during that time, I just decided not to. And the amount of hate and backlash I got, it was not expected. But
don't you find, I noticed you did a post that was really addressing certain things, like how you were dressing and how your kids, all these things. And I find that people just stop. Once you kind of say, hey, I know there's things being said about this. This is why. Yeah. And at that point, I just kick people out of my community at that point. I do. I'm like, you're not welcome here. I actually don't want you here. So I think that's how I learned to deal with it. And it really works for me because I think that's one of the things that we can control, is sort of like, if you are going to hate, you're not welcome here. I don't want you here. So bye.
You're right. And once you address it and you're ready to talk about it, then it just kind of shuts everyone up. It's like, they just stopped talking about it. So now, 2 years into it, no one really says anything anymore, which is, it just takes time.
So what's next for you? I feel like you just launched Fleur. How long is that now? A year?
We started working on it right during my divorce, but I think we launched it about almost a year ago.
What does it mean?
Fleur. Well, it's people are like, you spelled it wrong. It's Fleur. And I'm like, no. It's Phlur. So interesting story about Fleur is that it wasn't a brand that we started. My business partner and I, we acquired it. So yeah, so it was an existing brand already, and it was a beautiful brand, but it was going out of business. We actually loved the brand so much, and they built something so beautiful. We decided to acquire it and kind of revamp it, because before it was kind of like a very clean branding where everything was white and kind of a little stale, but it was like fear mongering for people that didn't eat clean and wear clean. And we wanted to kind of bash that, because clean could be sexy, clean could be modern and young. And so we revamped it with a new branding and launched some new fragrances with some of my favorite perfumers like Jerome Epinette from Byredo, Frank Santal from Le Labo. And so I just became obsessed with these perfumers that I personally really were fans of. And we asked them to help us create some of these scents. And so, yeah. And honestly, we didn't expect the virality of how it went, which was Missing Person, our very first fragrance. Yeah. And it was really inspired by my divorce. I was feeling lonely. I felt sad that, not that I was missing this person specifically, but I was missing kind of the warmth that somebody gives you. Like, and I felt like waking up to an empty bed, that just felt so foreign to me. Right. And so I wanted to bottle something up where it felt and smelled like really good, yummy skin. Like it's almost as if someone left their like scent on your pillowcase. Yeah. And so I told that story on TikTok and on Instagram, and it did pretty well. Like, I think people were intrigued by it. Yeah. But again, people never smelled these scents before. We weren't at Sephora yet. And so they're just purchasing it with the trust that like it was a good scent. Right. But once people started receiving the fragrance and people started reviewing it, it became therapy to people, because people on TikTok, they would spray it and then they would start like crying and being like, oh my God, this reminds me of so-and-so that I miss so much, or my mom that just passed away, or my brother who just like left for college. And
that's amazing, because I'm so glad that you just explained that, because I was wondering what missing person meant, honestly. And that is so incredible, because that has such an incredibly profound meaning, I think, for so many people.
Yeah, it does, because everyone misses something or someone at some point in their life. And, you know, for me, fragrance is all about personal. It's so personal, and we all go through our own journeys, but we all universally share the same emotions, which is sadness, excitement, wanting to feel attractive, sexy, like all of that. And so I think with each scent and each fragrance, my kind of goal is to tell a story in my life of something that I went through. And so Somebody Would it's about
somebody will love you.
Somebody will love me. I mean, I don't know.
You're going to become a songwriter after this, by the way.
Someone said on one of my comments, she's like, Chriselle, I feel like you just released
an album,
a post-breakup album, but through scent. And I was like, I basically did.
You totally did. You totally did. And by the way, for what it's worth, you've like never looked hotter, by the way.
Like, thanks.
I mean, because that is one of the last things I want to talk to you about, because I think it's very important. I've never spoken to somebody about this on the podcast, but I think it's something to really address, because here you are, single mom, on top of your game after, I mean, a long time doing this, honestly, not to age you because you're still painfully young. You've done quite a lot. But I do think that you still very much embrace the sexuality of being a woman, right? That's something I want to talk about, because I think that people have such opinions about that, right? Like sort of like, oh, you're a mom, don't show your stomach, right? Or you're a mom, don't show cleavage. And I think people have so many opinions about that. Emily Ratajkowski has been very open about sort of embracing her body and sort of her sensuality as a woman, and really like it being our bodies, right? And we can do what we want with it. And I think it's very important to talk about that, because I think there's so much judgment passed on women of a certain age, or that are mothers, or that are divorced, or that are on social media. I do want to really address your thoughts on that in general, because I think it's important to speak about being this very classy, very elegant woman and mother and entrepreneur. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I love this topic because it's something that I'm newer to as well. And I never knew that I had this kind of like femininity, sexuality in me that always existed, but I just really was kind of like pushing it down, I think, to make people around me, especially partners and people around me, to make them feel comfortable so they don't think that I'm doing anything appropriate outside. And, there's so many things that we as women are conditioned to feel a certain way. Like, oh, if you're dressing sexy, that means that you're a slut. Right. If you're wearing a mini skirt, that means that you're looking for like a man, you know? And so what I realized was that these are all things that society and actually a lot of men have conditioned us women to think. And so again, me being in my late 30s, I finally realized that is all BS. And I really feel good in my skin right now. I feel really confident. I feel really good with my body. The minute that I started dressing a little bit more, quote unquote, sexier, which is like shorter skirts or like showing my abs, the amount of people that were like, oh, now that she's single, she's like trying to look for a man. And that's why she's dressing like that. I'm like, absolutely not.
Does that make you so mad?
So mad. So mad.
Because it's like, why can't you say, I feel confident in my body? Like, I'm taking care of my body. I feel really good in it. And I'm really proud to show my body. Like, why do you have to cover it all the time?
Yeah, exactly. And so people, start talking about like how I was dressing for like the male gaze now instead of women. I'm like, no. It's for me because I feel the best I've ever felt. And it just shows you that I think there's a lot of stigma around how women should dress after they have kids or after they're divorced or if they're single and whatnot. And I just really want to change that narrative. And my daughter yesterday, my 4-year-old, she has like this black leather mini skirt. And my mom, she does. Yes, of course she does. And these like boots, these like combat boots. And so
that's your daughter.
My daughter. So she paired it together. And I was like, oh, that's such a chic outfit. So I wore a similar outfit. I like styled it because I was inspired by her look. And someone left a comment being like, your daughter shouldn't be dressing like that. And I was like, she's
Shut up.
4.
Let her do what she wants.
Yeah. And I understand you because I've been there before. Like I was once that person. So I'm not going to get mad at that. But it's really interesting to see how people have these ideas of how women should dress, especially after becoming a mother. But
I mean, I always say style is the best form of self-expression. And I think as young women, especially at 4, 5, 6, through their teen years, that's how they express themselves. And if you squash that,
not good. So I kind of allow my girls to wear what they want to wear. And because at the end of the day, it is a form of self-expression. Of course, I'm not going to let them walk out naked.
Of course. Within reason. Within
limits and reason. But with that said, I think this kind of newfound Chriselle after post-divorce is that I have accepted that I can feel sexy and it's okay to want to dress a certain way and really kind of like finesse like my feminine power. Like I've never had the opportunity.
Embrace it.
Yeah, to do that because I was so busy just like building my businesses, being a wife, being a mom, and I forgot who I was along the way. And this is so common for majority of women, especially working women, that once you have that space, you're like, oh, like I am feminine. This is what I like. Like this makes me feel good. And because I had that room and space to kind of like play around with it, like this is like the most confident I've ever been. And
how much do I love that?
Yeah.
How much do I love that? And to our listeners, listen, because that means a lot. She's a mom. She's crushing her career more than 15 years later. And she's never felt more confident and more beautiful. She didn't say that, but I'm going to say it for her.
Thank you.
But I want to close this because I could obviously talk to you for days and weeks and months. But what would you tell your quiet, timid, painfully shy little self? Because there are a lot of timid, painfully shy little girls out there.
Yeah.
So, and I do hear that a lot. And I definitely was not shy. No one in my family is shy. My kids are whatever the opposite of shy is. But when I meet shy people, I work harder because I'm so determined to pull them out, Yeah. So what I want to know is like, as you sit here today, like what would you tell that little painfully shy girl who was scared to like say a word?
I think one is that there's nothing wrong with you. I think for a long time, because some people around me thought there was something wrong with me, I just started to think that there was something wrong with me too.
Of course.
But I want to put it out there that people that are very much introverted and that are painfully shy and timid, there's nothing wrong with you. Being out there and public speaking and being in front of the camera, all of that is a skill. Like for me, naturally, I am still an introverted person. Like I personally love to be alone. If I had to choose being with people or being by myself, I would choose by myself. Yeah. And so it's not that all of a sudden I've changed personalities. I'm still the same person, but it's a skill. So the more you put yourself out there, and yes, it's going to be painful at first, and it'll continue to be painful for a very long time. But as long as you know that and you're okay with that and you continue to push and you put yourself out there, it'll get a little easier as you go. And so that's probably my biggest advice is...
And don't be scared of who you are.
Yeah. Don't be scared of who you are. And actually, as I mentioned earlier on this podcast, it could be a secret weapon. I think a lot of people, because they thought I was just like so quiet and aloof and kind of like out there, they thought I didn't really know what was going on. I knew exactly what everybody around me was doing. And it actually worked to my benefit because I was such an observer. Mm-hmm. And so when I did something, I was able to do something 10 times as fast than most people because I was so observant. And so, don't be ashamed of who you are, as you said, and really put yourself out there. It's a skill that you have to develop. The first few times is the most painful, but it'll only get easier. And surround yourself with people that really can support and help you along the way. I think with digital media and social media more than ever, people are able to connect with people that they never thought that they could connect, And so just having people around you that you could look for advice, that could support you. I mean, God, like Rachel, I was your biggest fan, like when I was in high school, right? Like the fact that we're friends now, like the high school girl in me would have never thought that was possible. And so it just shows you that the industry is really, really small and that there's so many opportunities out there.
And you're the best.
Oh, thank you. And hard work.
Hard work will get you there.
Yeah.
Hard work will get you there. Roger always says, I just kind of outworked everyone and it wasn't a competition. I just think if you work your ass off, you'll get where you want to go.
Yeah, because at some point, most people give up. And, I think a lot of people, they think, oh, I failed or it didn't go according to plan. And they kind of stop there. That's actually, for me, the sign to work even harder and try harder. And so I think that's a common thread in most successful people is that they don't give up after like something not working out. You actually go harder after that. So yeah.
Oh, I love you so much.
Love you too.
I'm so happy. I'm happy you're home. Thank you for doing this. Go enjoy your beautiful babies.
Bye.
Bye, honey. It's that time in the show when I answer 2 listener questions. So let's see what we have today. First question. You've talked about cooking and baking in the past on the pod and on Instagram. Do you make Thanksgiving dinner for your family? And if so, what is your favorite dish? Well, that's a really good question. I'm very selective about what I cook and bake because just as the perfectionist Virgo I am, I don't really make anything that I'm not sure is going to be a hit or I haven't tried before. I'm not someone that experiments with making someone new on a major holiday because if it crashes and burns, then you know what happens. So the answer is I make certain desserts like pies and brownies and cookies and banana breads and things like that. I'm really confident in baking. And then for cooking, I'm really good at side dishes. I've made a turkey twice in my life, and I really am not trying to do it again. So our friends that are coming over, they are doing the turkey, and I'm doing a lot of the sides, like the sweet potatoes and mashed potatoes and all kinds of really fun things. And full disclosure, for a time crunch and the best food, I very often get it from a place called Jones on 3rd here in LA that I've been getting food from for dinner parties and holidays for the last 15 years. Okay, next question. Your boys are always so well dressed. Do they fight you about dressing up, and what do you put them in for the holidays? The answer is my boys, Skylar is at an age now where he's 11, soon to be 12. So he definitely has an opinion. But I think there was this big turning point over the last year where he listened to what I was suggesting and he walked out the door and everyone kept telling him how handsome he looked. And, you know, even his friends in school were like, you look cool, you look this. So I think he kind of looked at me like, hey, Mom, you might know what you're doing here. Caius really doesn't care what I put him in as long as it's comfortable. And if it's not comfortable, he won't even let it go past his shoulders. Tags are a big thing around here. So for any clothing designers for kids, I would say that I strongly suggest making things with very soft or invisible tags because kids just want to rip them right out. Okay. Don't forget to submit your questions for next week's episode. All you have to do is DM us your questions to @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram, and I might just answer your question. That's @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram. Okay, well, that was really fun. I really loved learning about Chriselle being this painfully shy child and, you know, being a little afraid, I think, to express who she really was and then sort of becoming this massive digital influencer. I think if you don't follow her, you should, because I think you really see how much work goes into what these really big digital influencers and creators actually do. And I don't want to really sugarcoat that, because I watch it behind the scenes and I think people are like, oh, it's so glamorous. They just take pictures of themselves. And the ones that are, you know, in that sort of world like Chriselle, I think it's really important to understand how hard it is and how much work it is and how it's a full-time job to just stay on top of it and stay at the top of your game. I hope you enjoy listening to her journey because it's a really interesting one. And I think the evolution of who she is and now as a single working mother and how she perceives herself and how confident she is now. And I think it's a real learning lesson for a lot of women. I took a lot away from this one. So I hope you enjoy it. Thank you so much for listening to Climbing in Heels. And please don't forget to write a review wherever you get your podcast because I love to read them. And while you're at it, follow me on @RachelZoe and @ClimbingInHeelsPod on Instagram for more updates on upcoming guests, episodes, and all things Curator. I'll talk to you next week. Mwah.
Am I doing the right thing with my finances? Am I saving enough? Can I buy a house? Am I paying too much in taxes? Will I be able to retire? Putting a financial plan together feels impossible. What if I told you there was another way? Take Facet's free financial wellness quiz to get your score and a snapshot of your current financial health. Visit Facet.com now and discover your financial wellness score today. That's FACET.com.
This ad is sponsored by Facet. Facet Wealth Incorporated is an SEC registered investment advisor. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities, nor is it investment, legal, or tax advice.
Amazon Pharmacy presents Painful Thoughts.
Oh, I'm sick. So I took my sick to the doctor. The doctor gave my sick a prescription. Now my sick and I are in line at the pharmacy, mingling with all the other sicks, on its way to becoming an even worse sick.
Next time, keep your sick at home and let Amazon Pharmacy deliver your meds right to your door. Amazon Pharmacy. Healthcare just got less painful.
Okay, round two. Name something that's not boring.
A laundry? Ooh, a book club. Computer solitaire, huh?
Ah, sorry, we were looking for Chumba Casino. That's right, ChumbaCasino.com has over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.